Welcome to Chasing Balata, the podcast where golf meets real life. From shanks and slices to wins on and off the course, we're keeping it light, loose, and just a little out of bounds. Hosted by Jason Frazier, grab your clubs, your coffee, and maybe your sanity, because it's time to chase a little Balata.
Hello and welcome. This is the brand new Chasing Balata podcast. My name's Jason. I'm going to be your host on this journey. And this podcast is going to be about a little bit of everything. Mostly about golf, but definitely a little bit about everything. And this first episode is just kind of like an introductory of, this is who I am, this is what we're going to be doing, blah, 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 blah. So, hopefully it finds some of you out there, and I hope it finds you well. I am not a professional by any stretch of the imagination, so there's going to be a lot of filler words, I'm sure. I like to say, a lot, whatever, so be it. But I'm literally jumping into the deep end here. I have never even thought about doing anything like this. I definitely don't have any type of background in broadcasting, podcasting, social media, anything like that. I'm a career military guy, and I'll touch on that here in a little bit. But I've had this desire to create for a very long time, but the problem that I kept running into is, what did I want to create? So my brain it's always going 1,000 miles an hour. I've got half-written screenplays. I've got short stories. I get ideas that I'm like, maybe that would make a good novel. And I'm not going to write a novel. I don't have that kind of patience. But I love novels, and whoever writes them out there, keep them coming, because I do love to read them, but I'm not that guy. So I guess basically what I'm saying is I'm really good at starting things when it comes to being creative, but then I am terrible at finishing them. And a good point of that is I am always thinking up like movie scenes in my head, right? Because they say, write the movie that you want to see, or write the story that you want to read about. And so I think of these movie scenes, and I'll put them down on paper, format them, just like a screenplay should look. But then once it's on paper, I just kind of, I either can't figure out where to take it, or I think it's dumb and nobody would want to watch that. And they just fall off to the wayside. And so I'm terrible about that. But then I got this idea to do a podcast, because I love listening to podcasts. I listen to several different ones on a regular basis. But they're like the big time listens done by professionals. They've got, usually the podcaster is somebody that's already kind of well known or set up, which makes it easier to get their podcast off the ground. They have producers, they have studios, they got all this Gucci equipment. I got a $50 camera, $30 mic, $30 set of headphones. That's what this is. It's going to be raw. It's going to be unfiltered. I've already noticed in some other recordings I've made that sometimes the mic glitches. It makes my voice sound like it cuts. But it is what it is. If that's the way this turns out, then that's just how it's going to be, raw and unfiltered, because I don't care about that. I don't mind that. I like real. I like when somebody gets on a camera, in a video or on the radio or whatever, and they are who they are. They tell it like it is, and you either like it or you don't. That's my mentality with this. That's what I like, and that's probably just how it's going to roll. Now, would I like to polish it up as we move forward? Yeah, sure. But, until then, we're just going to have to figure it out together. And as someone, fucking gnat, as someone who's never really put themselves out there like this, I'm just too old to give a shit. You know, the people who know me, my friends, dude, they know I'm a fucking idiot. They know I'm some goofball. I like to just be goofy. I'm the king of ill-timed humor. Don't go to a funeral with me, and don't deliver bad news to somebody if I'm standing there. Because I'm really good at being funny when I'm not supposed to be funny. So, but hey, that's what we're going for with this podcast. So ultimately, like I said, I want to cover a broad spectrum of things, mostly about sports in general, and we'll sprinkle some life into it. But really, the absolute main focus of this is going to be golf because I love golf, man. I love golf. And I'm just going to clarify right now. When I say I love something or I'm passionate about something, let's just exclude family because you don't love anything more than your family. At least I hope you don't. I don't. My family is number one. So I obviously love them more than anything. So we're just going to set that aside. So when I'm talking about how much I love something in this podcast, if I'm not directly talking about my family, you're not going to be confused that I'm saying, oh, I would love golf more than my family, because I don't. It's close. It's close second. But I digress, right? So anyways, we're going to talk about a lot of golf. And I'm not just talking about like the upper echelons of golf, PGA Tour, Live, Rory, Bryson, Scotty, all those guys. I'm talking about our golf game, the everyday golfer. Whether you're a scratch golfer or you're a 28 handicap, I feel like this will be the podcast for you. So now, the great thing about golf, in my humble opinion, is that golf is a thinking game, right? Of course, it obviously requires a little bit of skill. I'm not saying that, but I firmly believe that just about every single round of golf you play, it's played between the ears. So why not get better together at that? Because I feel like there is a bottomless pit of knowledge and information out there for all of us to absorb and take in. And that's what I want to do here, right? We're going to talk about strategies for all levels of golf. We're going to talk about golfing your golf swing, because I'm not of the school that there is one right way to swing a golf club. Now, I do believe that we all have to get back to and through the impact zone in relatively the same manner. But how you go about that, I don't believe there's one right way. And you won't hear that from me. So we're going to talk about tips and tricks that we use on the golf course, or golf course strategy, golf course management, while you're chasing that ball up and down the fairways, or in and out of the trees, depending on which golf swing shows up that day. And we can all definitely relate to that. I plan on doing individual episodes that zero in on certain aspects of the game, like, the tee shot, 100 yards and in, chipping, putting is obviously important. If you don't have a short game, I'll just go ahead and say it now. I firmly believe if you can't chip and putt, and we'll throw pitching in there, pitch shots, you're not going to score. You're never going to score well, and your game is never going to improve. So there, I said, and I stand by it. And then we have the other topics of golf that don't necessarily relate directly to the golf swing, right? Like playing in solo tournaments, right? Competitive golf. I love to play in golf tournaments. That's also where my golf game likes to go and hide, because tournament golf and just a casual round with your buddies, it's not the same thing, because it's all played up here, right? Between the ears. We'll talk about playing in scrambles. Those are kind of getting out of control lately. Dudes showing up, four average, the average handicap is 14. So when four average dudes show up and they throw up a 52 or a 50 in a scramble, they're full of shit. I'll just say that right now. And you're seeing a lot of that out there lately. Or they got like one stick on their team. I believe one stick's not good enough to get you that kind of score. We'll talk about pace of play. It's always a fun topic of discussion because there are a lot of varying opinions on how fast or slow you should play golf. Me, I'm more of a fast player. I like to get into a rhythm and keep that going. But I know people that like to play slow and methodical, and that's fine if your game warrants that. But if you just like to beat the ball up and down the course, there's really no reason to play slow. Just enjoy yourself. And we'll definitely talk about that. Um, we're going to talk about the kind of ball that you play because I firmly believe the style, or excuse me, the type of golf ball that you play matters, even at our level. I've heard people say it doesn't. I disagree with that. And when we do decide to talk about that, I'll explain why. But the type of golf ball you play matters, even at our level. Maybe not the very, very beginner golfer who has gone to the range once or twice and they're out playing their first or second round of golf. But once you start playing on a regular basis, yes, it matters. We'll talk about distance control because distance control, how far you hit your clubs, also is very important. You need to know how far you hit your 8 iron or your 7 iron or, your 5 wood, whatever. And that also relates to the type of golf ball you play, if you didn't know that. And so we'll talk about all those things. And, almost forgot. Related to what level of golf, we were definitely going to talk about YouTube golf. I for sure have some thoughts on that. Now, mostly good. I am a fan of YouTube golf. I think it's great for the game. I think it helps grow the game, and I think growing the game is important. Do I believe that what you see on there is all 100% true and not doctored up a little bit? No. I mean, some of the good ones on there that I do really enjoy, and we'll go into those. Yeah, what you see is what you get. It's unfiltered. You see the good shots, you see the bad shots. But, come on. There's dudes out there that post clips of birdies on damn near every hole. Well, if that's the case, how come you're just an amateur golfer trying to eke by? If you're that good, you should be competing at a higher level that pays you money. But that's just my opinion. So, along with professional sports, not just golf, we're also going to talk about football. We're going to talk about baseball, hockey. The playoffs are going on right now. That game 7 the other night between Toronto and Seattle was ridiculous. I mean, I love playoff baseball, playoff hockey. It's the best. I'm going to go ahead and say this now. I am and always will be Philadelphia Eagles fan. I have been since I was a kid. That's not going to change. So bring on the shit talk. I'm here for it. I love it. I know people don't think very highly of some sports teams out there, and Philadelphia sports in general is very close to the top of that list. But I love the shit talk. I love going back and forth with people. I think it's fun. I think it makes it a lot more entertaining. Now, there is a line. We're talking about shit talk back and forth between a bunch of grown men or women who get to play a kid's game for a living. It's not life or death, but some people absolutely think it is, and they go deep and they go dark in their talk, and it's just, you can cross a line. Case in point, I thought the Ryder Cup was a little bit out of control this past year, or this past Ryder Cup. It's just golf, man. I mean, some dude threw a beer at Rory's wife. A beer. Because she's married to Rory McIlroy. And she's an American. I mean, what the hell? How stupid is that? What kind of level of ridiculousness do you have to be on to think it's a good idea to cross that line and chuck a beer at another man's wife? Or anybody in general. So, crazy. My Misfits mug that I handcrafted myself. Like I said, it's going to be raw and unfiltered, and I'm thirsty. Having said that, we're also going to talk about, music, movies, shows. My wife and I love to binge watch shows. I love music. You see my setup here behind me. I got a nice little vinyl collection going on. Got my Kiss set up for today. Ripped to the Spaceman, Ace Frehley. I got my book here. Little shameless plug here for my buddy Scoop. That book's called Instrumental Forever, The Story of Karma to Burn. It was written by a very, very good friend of mine named Justin Johnson. So free plug there, buddy. You can definitely find it on Amazon. And I do believe it's going to start making its way into bookstores. But it's definitely on Amazon. Highly encourage you to go buy it. It is a fantastic book. We grew up in Huntington, West Virginia. And the music scene there in the 90s was awesome. It was very underground. It was very gritty. It was very in your face. And Justin captured that, perfectly. And it just absolutely takes you back to that time. And it's such a great read. So if you love underground music or that scene in general like I do, please go pick that book up. You're going to love it. You won't regret it. So, but anyways, maybe I'll come up with some sort of a segment dedicated to a specific show or band that week. We'll just see what's going on. And, we're also going to touch on our daily lives because, none of us just gets to play golf all the time. I'm sure there's people out there that wish they could only play golf all the time, but that's just not very realistic. How do we make time? Or if we can't make time, how do we use the time that we have to improve at this insanely frustrating and wonderful game that we all love to play? Because I get it, man. Hell, I'm 47 years old. I'm married. We have 4 kids. We have a grandson. So I totally get the busy part. Sometimes you just got to try and figure it out. Now, having said all that about what we're going to talk about, I will say up front, so that there is no confusion whatsoever, that there are 2 topics that we will absolutely not be discussing on this show. And you can probably already guess what they are. But we will not be discussing politics, and we will not be discussing religion. Nope. Not here. Not ever. Those 2 topics are such a hotbed for divisiveness. I have seen people stop being friends with each other. I've seen the wedges that it throws into groups, just because, you might follow this person politically, they may follow that person, and there's just no middle ground. There should be a middle ground, but there isn't. And that's not what this show is about. It's not what it's going to be about. There are a lot of great podcasts out there that talk about politics and religion. And if that's your bag and that's what you want, I highly encourage you to go out there and find them. But you're not going to find it here. Ever. So, that's that in a nutshell. Now, we're going to talk about me because this is my show and you might as well get to know me a little bit. Like I said, I just turned 47 in July of this year. I still think I'm 27 sometimes in my head. And then most days I wake up definitely not feeling 27 and normally not 47 either. Monday, here's funny. This is kind of the dumb shit I do to myself. 2 days ago, I decided that I was going to do a workout that I thought of in my head. Now, maybe somebody else has done this workout before somewhere else. And I'm sure they have, but I don't know. I thought of it, and I'm like, yeah, that sounds like a great idea. So I put 135 pounds on a barbell, and I did 10 sets of 10 back squats, 10 sets of 10 bench press, flat bench, 10 sets of 10 deadlift. And then I I called it the 300s at first, but then I called it 400 because I decided to add 4 sets of 25 shrugs. And man, from the waist down, I feel like I handed my wife a baseball bat and said, "Hey, will you beat the shit out of me?" Because, I mean, I'm like a baby giraffe. I mean, it's hilarious. And my house is full of steps. I mean, even just like the room I'm in now has 2 steps to get down into the hallway. And I almost fall on my face every step I take. It is quite entertaining. But I did it to myself, right? Like the bench press and the deadlifts were good. But man, those squats, because it'd been a while since I'd done any squats, and it got me. I might have went a little too far on that. So, and then last night, I'm a little tired today. Last night, we went to the big rock show over in at the Norva. A little guilty pleasure of mine. Cannibal Corpse was in town. If you're not familiar with Cannibal Corpse, just think of or go check out a clip from the first Ace Ventura movie, the bar scene where he goes into the bar and that death metal band is playing. That's Cannibal Corpse. They've been around for a little bit. They're like a guilty pleasure of mine, right? I'm not really a death metal guy. I love metal. I love thrash metal. I love all kinds of metal. But Cannibal Corpse is just one of those bands that I've always really enjoyed. And any chance I get to see him live, I always try and take it. So it had been a while. So we went, me and my buddy Justin, and I swear it was like those memes you see on social media where the old people are like, fuck, man, why does the band I want to see have to go on at 10 o'clock at night? That's how it was. We got there, doors opened at 6. We got there at like, I don't know, 6:45, 7 o'clock. There were 4 bands. The first 2 bands, never really heard of. They weren't bad. Not really my cup of tea, but they weren't bad as far as talent. And then Municipal Waste played, and they're a thrash metal band. They've been around for like 20, 25 years. They're pretty good. They're pretty good live. They're especially good live. They have a lot of fun while they play. But I mean, Cannibal Corpse didn't go on till like 9:45. Oh my God, dude, what are we doing here? Like my feet hurt, nowhere to sit down. Like I was totally that 47-year-old dude way past his prime. At least that's what I felt like. My buddy Justin's a little bit younger than me, but I think even he was kind of feeling it too. So, but anyways, so yeah, I'm 47. I'm very happily married to my best friend, and I'm absolutely not ashamed to say that. I hit the jackpot when I met my wife. She is just absolutely awesome. And I might also add, she is an absolute smoke show. So, I'm still trying to figure out how I got her. And the only thing I can come up with is I'm incredibly funny. I mean, that's got to be the secret to my success, right? She thinks I'm funny. And, who doesn't love to laugh? We all love to laugh. We got 4 amazing kids. Well, adults now, pretty much. Our youngest is 17. He's a senior in high school. And, we have a 5-year-old grandson. And he's awesome, man. I mean, he is a ball, like a tornado of energy. And, for people out there who have younger kids or for those of us that have the grandkids, you know what I'm talking about. Like, it's insane. Like, no rest. From the moment he opens his eyes till the moment he goes to sleep, he's 100 miles an hour. I wish I had just an ounce of that energy. I could sprint 18 holes of golf, no problem, if I had just this much energy that he runs around with. So I retired from the Navy last October 1st, actually, after 24 and a half years. I was enlisted for 14 years, and yeah, this is how I joined the Navy. So I grew up in Huntington, like I said, talking about the book. I grew up in Huntington, West Virginia, and I went to Marshall for a couple years after high school, mostly part-time. Was not a mathlete, was definitely in it for the college environment of what I perceived as the college environment, partying, The difference is I was in a fraternity, and the difference is most of my fraternity brothers, they also understood they had to go to class and make good grades and graduate. I was not very good at that. So while I was going in the spring of 2000, I decided, I was trying to get a job and I couldn't get a job anywhere. And I got hired as a telemarketer. A telemarketer. I mean, is there anybody out there that thinks highly of a telemarketer? Honestly, I mean, these days with cell phones, you get those spam calls where you answer it and nobody says anything or they just hang up or whatever. But for those of us that can remember landlines in our houses and home phone numbers, those people would call you and you answered the phone because you didn't know any better. And so I got this job. They hired me because I at that point I was desperate just for employment. And I remember the first day I'm sitting there and we were in like this training classroom and they're just droning on about bullshit or whatever. And I remember thinking, no way, dude. No way can I do this job for a living. And they put us on break and I immediately walked out, left the building, and I didn't even look back. I knew I wasn't going back. Regardless of what happened, I knew I wasn't going back. And I walked around the corner because this was down by the Civic Center in Huntington, and that's where all the recruiting offices used to be. I don't know if they're still there, but I walked around the corner of the Navy, and because I had some buddies that were in the Navy that were a little bit older than me, and I kind of had an idea about the Navy, but you never really know until you're there. So, but I walked in, and I remember telling the recruiter, like, you don't have to sell me, you don't have to pitch me anything, sign me up, get me out of here, please. And he's like fumbling on himself. He's like, "Oh, okay." He's like, "Well, what do you want to do? What job do you want?" And I said, "I don't care, man." I said, I always thought the flight deck was cool. I mean, who hadn't seen Top Gun, right? I know I was never going to be a pilot, so I might as well at least see what the flight deck's like. So I was like, I want to work on the flight deck. And he goes, "Oh, okay." And he opened this book or binder that he had, and he just randomly is like, "How about AME?" And I was like, "Well, what do they do?" He goes, "They work on ejection seats." I said, "That sounds great. Sign me up." And that is the very, very thought out scientific way of how I chose my profession for the next 25 years. So, um, yeah. And then to even make matters worse, I was very out of shape because I just indulged a lot. Uh, he's like, "Well, when you want to leave?" This was right at the end of April. No, this was the middle of May. And I was like, "Well, I should probably get in some shape. I'm very out of shape. Maybe like end of July." And, being a recruiter, he's like, "I'll give you $5,000 if you leave next week." I was like, "I'm in." So that led to me joining the Navy on May 26, 2000. And I ended up never leaving it. So like I said, I was enlisted for 14 years as an AME, aviation structural mechanic, safety equipment. So I worked on ejection seats. I worked on oxygen systems, cabin pressure, air conditioning, basically anything that had to do with the life support of the air crew. And I worked on the F-18 Charlie, which, yeah, I'm going to catch hate from the F-14 Tomcat people. But the Legacy Hornet it's just one of the greatest aircraft of all time, ever. And I would have stayed in the Navy for as long as they let me if they could have kept that airplane in service. I mean, I loved it. I loved everything about it. I loved troubleshooting it. I loved getting in it and starting it up and turning it. I mean, it was fantastic. So, but then I did that and, at my 14 and a half year mark, I had the opportunity to, apply to become a limited duty officer in LDO. And truth be told, I kind of half-assed that package. Like, I mean, I did it and I did it correctly, but my heart wasn't really in it because at the time I was a chief. And I mean, there's no better job in any military than being a chief in the Navy. I'm here to tell you. And I will die on that hill. I love the Chiefs mess. I love everything about it. And the 3 years and 14 days, like, because I wasn't counting, that I was a chief, I thought it was the greatest thing ever. Best job. So I kind of half-assed put my package in, and I ended up getting selected. So I commissioned, and for the next 10 years, I was a aviation maintenance officer. And then you had to do 10 years if you wanted to retire as an officer. So it's funny because I kind of had made up my mind that at my 10-year mark as an officer, I'm out. Like, I'm going to do my payback, my commitment that I said I would do, and I'm out. And so on my retirement message, it actually says my commission time is 10 years, 0 months, 0 days. So, but hey, I honored my commitment, right? And I retired under honorable conditions, honorably. And so that's where we're at now. And yes, like I said, I was a chief. Once a chief, always a chief. I was tested and accepted September 16th, 2011. So, and I could go on and on about the Navy, but that would take multiple episodes. But hey, if that's something you guys want to hear about, I'd be more than happy to talk about it. So, let's talk about some golf. Man, golf. What a game, right? I mean, I've been playing golf for about 37 years, and I can't ever think of a time where golf wasn't fun. All right. So that's not true. What I should say is I can't ever think of a time where I didn't want to play golf. There were certainly times where I thought golf was not very much fun. When I was younger, in my 20s, I used to get so unbelievably mad while I was playing. And for no reason whatsoever. Because, probably like a lot of other amateur golfers out there, I thought I was better than I really was. And, if you're a professional golfer, you get paid to do that for a living, and that's your livelihood. That's how you support your family, whatever the case might be. Absolutely. That's your job. You want to get mad because you're not playing well. That's different. But at our level, what are we doing? There's no reason to get mad. None. Zero. So, because I thought that I was better than I actually was, in my mind, I thought that I should play better. And to me, playing better meant scratch golf, which is just insanely funny because I've never been a scratch golfer in my life. I think the lowest my handicap ever was during COVID, because you could either sit at home or go play golf. That was pretty much your two options. I think my handicap got down to, I was about at 2-1, 2-2, but never scratch. So the fact that I even thought that is just ridiculous and unrealistic. So, and you know what? I have no doubt that I was not very much fun to play with, especially in tournaments. Now, at the time, did I realize that I was such a douchebag to play with? I don't think so. I mean, my friends never said anything, but, I have no doubt that I was, that guy. Like, fuck, man, we're playing with Frazier. Bless, dude. But, hey, you don't know any better. I was young. I was stupid. So, anyways, but then, I remember I was watching golf. It was around 2006, and I was watching some golf tournament on TV. I can't remember which one. And Tiger Woods, who was the number one golfer in the world at the time. I watched him hit behind his golf ball with a driver and snap hook one about 200 yards left into some trees. And I don't know why, but it was like a light switch went on in my head. And I remember thinking, you know, dude, he's the number one golfer on the planet, possibly one of the best golfers of all time, if we want to have that debate, and we can. And if he can do that, who in the hell am I to be getting mad while I play golf and breaking golf clubs? And I'm ashamed to say that I did, in fact, break a golf club in a golf tournament up in Massachusetts once. I'm not proud of that at all. And I still remember like it was yesterday. It was a 5-wood. I was teeing off and I hooked it out of bounds. And I just remember instantly getting mad, putting the head of the golf club on the ground and inserting my right foot through the shaft and then throwing it into the woods. I mean, how immature is that? And there were people standing around watching, not just people in my group, but we were kind of backed up. So there was another group waiting. I mean, embarrassing. Who does that? So, but like I said, once I saw Tiger do that and I realized that that can happen to anybody and it does happen to everybody, I just decided, I'm not getting mad anymore. And I never have. I do not get mad when I play golf. Doesn't matter the situation. If I'm just out and about, screwing around, or if I'm actually playing in a tournament, I don't get mad. There's no point. Now, do I allow myself 10 to 15 seconds after a bad shot to maybe get a little frustrated or question my golfing stupidity? Sure. Of course I do. We're human. Nobody's just going to be unemotional and I think about it. That was dumb. That's usually what I say. I'll usually say something like, well, that was stupid. And then I just move on, hit it and go get it. But I don't get mad. And it's been almost 20 years since then. And I'm very proud to say that because it's just not worth it. And hopefully anyone watching this or listening to this realizes that the more mad you get, the worse you're going to play. And that is a fact. So these days, man, I just truck along. I know what my skill level is. I know that as a 6 handicap, that's what I'm currently. I'm a 6.6 as of this morning. If I can get around and if I get around the course and 79, 80, 81, 82, I mean, that's a pretty damn good day for me. So, you have to expect whatever your handicap might be that you're going to make some bogeys. You might even have a blow-up hole or two. My goal is usually, and it's probably a lot of people's goals, but my goal is usually I try to not have any 3-putts and I try not to have any double bogeys. And if I get through a round with no 3-putts and no double bogeys, then I normally I'll be right there around 79, 80, 81. And we'll discuss later, how I navigate a golf course and, course strategy and trying to play smart, putting the driver back in the bag when you don't need it. And we'll definitely talk about one of my favorite topics, which is when bogey becomes a good score, because that is a very real thing. And that can be for many different reasons. That could be as simple as, the hardest hole on the course, the number one handicap hole. And it's, the one in the number one handicap hole on my home course. If you want to hit the ball more than 215 yards off the tee, then you have to land it in a fairway about 30 yards wide with a lake on the left. And literally backyards and houses on the right. There is no room for error. I mean, sure, you can, but there's a lot of room for blow up there. And then when I say 215, that's the edge of the bunker on the right side of the fairway. And it's about 180 yards on the front edge. So really, the fattest part of the fairway, you're going to hit a ball about 185 yards. And you got a huge landing zone, but then you still have about 185 yards into the green. And it's a par four, so it's a tough little hole. Now, it's not uncommon for me to par it, but it's also not uncommon for me to bogey it. And bogeys, I'm okay with that. That is perfectly fine. Getting out of there with a bogey or better is the goal every single time I play that hole. I never hit driver on that hole. I never hit anything more than 5-iron on that hole, depending on the wind. So, but and then there's making bogey because you hit a bad tee shot. You stripe one out of bounds or stripe one into a lake, and now you're scrambling. That's when bogey absolutely becomes a great score. And again, we'll talk about all that. Because I always like to say at my skill level, if I'm on the green with a reasonable putt at par, then I'm probably having a good round. Like I'm doing all right. So, and I want to say this, and I don't feel like I need to be an expert in the field. I don't need to be Bob Rotella or anybody like that. But if you understand your golf game and you understand your limits of what skill you have, you will have more fun while you're playing golf. Fact. So now currently, as I record this, my game's in a pretty good place. I took a few months off, starting back in April due to a work commitment. And so I didn't even look at my golf clubs for basically the whole summer until about halfway through August, maybe a little bit towards the end of August. I decided it was time to start playing again. And in my infinite wisdom, and this wasn't the best idea I've ever had, I decided to just jump right back into golf tournaments. Instead of, maybe going to the range and seeing where my game was or just going out and playing a few rounds here and there, I'm like, golf tournament, send it. And that led to 3 straight rounds in the 90s. Yeah. So now we played some tough courses. One golf course up in Williamsburg called Colonial Heritage is just a monster of a golf course. And it's such a tough course that like 8 of the holes have drop zones in the fairways. Like that's how hard it is. It's crazy. And to make matters even more interesting or worse, depending on how you look at it, I decided, so I wouldn't overthink anything, I was going to play that tournament with 5 clubs. Yep. I played with my 7-wood, 7-iron, pitching wedge, approach wedge, putter. And that led to a 93. I think that was the 93. So, but it is what it is. It didn't do very good for my handicap. It's driving my handicap up. At the start of that, I was in the 4s. So those 90s are not helping me right now. And look, understand, by no means am I saying that if you shoot in the 90s, that's a bad score, because I'm not. And it isn't. I'm just making a point with regards to my handicap, my personal skill level. 90 shooting in the 90s does not help me. My skill level says I will shoot in the 90s. It says I can shoot in the 70s. It says I'll normally shoot in the 80s, but it also says I can definitely shoot in the 90s. And, if you're trying to get your handicap down, obviously you don't want those scores in the 90s. That's the only point I'm making. And also, and this is great, my wife has started playing golf, and she is hooked. Oh man, it started with her chipping in the front yard. I hope she doesn't mind me talking about this. I guess we're going to find out. I'm going to let her listen to this before I put it out there. But it started with her chipping in the front yard, just trying to make contact and any contact at all. Because I always wanted her to start playing. We've been together since October of 2017, and she just never really had a desire to learn. And I've always played golf, and I always told her, like, oh, you should learn to play. It'll be fun. We could go play together. But she just didn't want to. But then once she started chipping, and that's how it happens, right? She's like, oh, let's go out in the front yard and chip. So she goes out, she starts chipping, she starts making contact pretty consistently, just chipping the ball, which turns into us going to the driving range. And so this was right at the end of August, the beginning of September, like Labor Day weekend. Yeah, Labor Day weekend. So the Sunday, the day before Labor Day, we go to the driving range at our course. And, she's hitting golf balls. She's using my clubs, my irons. And I remember I'm standing there and I tell her, I go, you need to be careful. You're going to get hooked and we're going to end up at Golf Galaxy buying you a set of golf clubs. Well, the next day, Labor Day, there we were at Golf Galaxy buying her first set of golf clubs. And it was awesome. She was so happy about it. I was so happy about it. And you bet your ass, we left Golf Galaxy and went straight to the driving range and practiced for probably 2 hours. And here's what's awesome about that, right? She loves to practice. She loves to absorb. She's a data-driven person. She loves all the data. She likes to learn. She doesn't just want to be like, oh, I'm making the ball go that way. She wants to know why she's making the ball go that way. And that's great. I think that's great for a beginner to understand, or at least try to understand what's going on, because I don't think any of us truly understand the game of golf. But we're not even 2 months into this now, and last week she shot a 57 on 9 holes. A 57. Now, some of you might not understand that, but a 57 on 9 holes on your, I think it was her third time out on the actual course. That's absurd. It's absurd. That is such a good score. Like, she didn't fully grasp that at first, because not all of her shots looked like, they were good shots, even though she was advancing the ball. It just might not have gotten up in the air, but it still went. So me trying to express that to her, it was crazy. It was such a good score for 9 holes. And she gets it. She understands that it's a great score. But she's uber competitive. She wants to be better. And she's going to get there, because, she just, every time we go to the range, it's just a little bit better and a little bit better and a little bit better. And I can see her breaking 100 within the year. I really can. So, and you know what? Here's what's great about it. 2 reasons. One, I get to play golf with my best friend. Like, for guys fighting for time to get out and get away and get to go play golf, which, as I mentioned earlier, is a struggle for some people. We go to the course any chance we get. That's our thing. Like, we love to work out. My wife's a big, she loves working out. She tracks her macros. She does all that. She also loves getting to the golf course. And it's great because it's not one of those situations where it's like, oh, well, my husband plays golf, so I guess maybe I'll learn how to play golf, and that'll at least afford us more time together. It's not like that at all. She's learning to play golf because she loves it. She's hooked on it. She finds it a lot of fun. Sure, she gets frustrated. We all do. But she loves the challenge, and she loves the aspect of it. And I think it's great. I'm here for it. I'm sorry, my eyes are itching for some reason. Since September, almost every weekend, On Fridays, we go to the driving range. Saturdays, we either go to the range or we play 9 holes. And Sunday, we play 9 holes. And we do that every weekend. Now, for us golfers, how awesome is that? I mean, it's just amazing. So I can't say enough great things about it. I'm so glad she started playing. And I love being out there with her because it's fun to watch her learn and watch her grow. And, she gets to see me play. And, I always talk shit about my game, good and bad. So now she gets to see it for real and kind of understand what I'm talking about. And she's my biggest fan. When I hit a good shot, the compliments are great. Yeah, I'm being kind of a sucker or a sap. So it is what it is. I love her very much. And I'm excited for us at the fact that we get to keep playing golf for years to come, because golf is again, here's another aspect of golf. Golf is one of those games that you can play until the day you die. As long as your body can still physically move a club, it's not a game you have to give up, like football or whatever the case might be. Golf, you can golf until the day you die. And that's one of the things that makes it great. Now, the other reason, this one's more selfish. Because she likes to go to the driving range and because she likes to practice, that means that I get to practice. That means that I go to the driving range. And I used to never do that at all. I would never practice. I would just go play. I would never put in the time on the chipping or the putting or working on whatever aspect of my game. And then I would wonder why I wasn't getting better. I'll let you do the math on that one. So I've already seen progress in my game. I'm hitting the ball better. I'm making better decisions on the course. My short game in just under 2 months has drastically improved. And that's all because, she picked up the game and now we just go and we practice all the time. So there you go. But I think I've rambled on for enough time today. Like I said, this episode was just kind of like hey, this is me and this is what we're going to be doing. So I'm not sure how long these episodes are going to run. Hopefully anywhere between 30 to 45 minutes. If you guys want them to go longer, I'm sure I can figure out a way to do that. If you're like, for the love of God, man, shut up. Well, I'll probably still talk just as long, but we'll see. I'm currently just retired right now, collecting my pension from the Navy. So I'm actively seeking employment. So if you know anything, hit me up. But I figured this was the perfect time to try and get this off the ground and see if we can make something out of it. So we're going to probably do one episode a week. At least one episode a week, and that'll probably be it, because I've already realized just with what I'm doing right now for this first introductory episode, a lot goes into it, a lot more than I thought. So you got to find your podcast software, you got to learn how to use it, you got to do all that jazz. So it'll be one episode a week, the day of release to be determined, but we'll go from there. So that's all for now. Again, I hope this found you guys out there, and I hope it found you well. And I hope to grow a good base of golfing fans, or just fans in general, sports fans, life fans, whatever you want to hear about. If you don't play golf, but you want to listen to this podcast, well, you're going to learn about golf. One last thing, I encourage you to send in your feedback. If there's a topic you want to hear about that I haven't mentioned or talked about discussing, let me know. If there's a topic I have been discussing, and you've got thoughts on it, let me know. If you've got critiques or criticisms, let me know, because I'm new to this. It's not going to be great at first. I encourage the feedback and the criticism. That's how you get better, right? It's not all unicorns and rainbows. You need to hear the good and the bad and take that and build on it. So you can reach me at my email address, which is chasingbalata@gmail.com. Once again, that's chasingbalata, all one word, all lowercase, at gmail.com. So from there, I'm very excited to see what the future holds with this. I can't wait to get it going and see where it takes all of us, and hopefully we can all improve together. So until next time, send it.